bodies of Zyian warriors, broken and bloody, floated through the dark void of space, a grim testament to the brutal onslaught of the Corth invasion fleet. Captain Diaz clenched the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles turning white as he witnessed the crumbling defenses of Zylo Prime on the view screen of the Galactic Federation ship Nexus. The distress signal had brought them here, but they were too late. The Corth, known for their ruthlessness and advanced weaponry, had already begun their merciless attack. Diaz hailed the Corth commander, Warlord Grax, his heart sinking as the scarred face appeared on the screen. Grax demanded the immediate surrender of the Zyian and the Galactic Federation, his voice dripping with malice as he threatened destruction if they refused. Outmatched and outnumbered, Diaz prepared to negotiate terms of surrender, the bitter taste of defeat in his mouth. The end of the Zyian race seemed near, and the Galactic Federation would soon fall. But in that moment of despair, a massive wormhole tore open the fabric of space near the planet, and a fleet of strange, unidentified ships emerged. "This is Captain James Blake of the Earth Defense Force. We're here to help," crackled a message over the comms. The humans had arrived, and the tide of battle was about to turn. Captain Blake, experienced in battles with the Earth Defense Force, was taken aback by the scene before him as his fleet emerged from the wormhole near Zylo Prime. The once peaceful planet was under siege, its defenses crumbling under the relentless assault of the Corth invasion fleet. Blake clenched his jaw, surveying the destruction and the lifeless bodies of Zyian warriors floating in the void. He turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Assessment." Chen's fingers flew across her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The Corth fleet outnumbers the Zyian defenses 3-1, sir. They're targeting major population centers and infrastructure. The zones are putting up a fight, but they're outmatched." Blake nodded grimly. "And the Galactic Federation ship, the Nexus? They're holding position near the planet, sir, but they're not engaging the Corth." The captain's gaze narrowed. "They must be attempting negotiations, but there's no reasoning with the Corth. They only comprehend one language, force." He turned to his communications officer. "Patch me through to the fleet," Blake commanded, his voice ringing with authority. The officer nodded, and Blake addressed all Earth Defense Force ships, his tone commanding. "This is Captain Blake to all Earth Defense Force ships. We have a civilization to save. Engage the Corth fleet, draw their fire away from the planet, and give the zones a chance to regroup. Remember, we're not just fighting for Zylo Prime, we're fighting for the future of the Galactic Federation. Let's show these bastards what humans are made of." A chorus of affirmatives echoed over the comms, and the human fleet surged forward, their advanced ships gleaming in the light of Zylo Prime's sun. The Corth, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a new enemy, scrambled to respond. On the bridge of the Nexus, Captain Diaz watched in stunned disbelief as the human ships engaged the Corth. Their movements were fluid and precise, their weapons slicing through the enemy's shields effortlessly. Despite their superior numbers, the Corth struggled to keep pace with the humans' lightning-fast attacks and evasive maneuvers. Diaz's communications officer, a young Zyian named Varen, gasped as a human ship executed a daring roll and fired a volley of missiles at a Corth destroyer. The missiles hit their mark, and the destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "By the stars, I've never seen anything like it," Varen breathed. "Who are these humans?" Diaz shook his head, his eyes fixed on the view screen. "I don't know, but they're giving the Corth a hell of a fight." On the Corth flagship, Warlord Grax's eyes blazed with fury as he watched his ships fall to the human onslaught. He slammed his fist on the armrest of his command chair, his voice a guttural roar. "Focus all fire on the human fleet. I want them dead now." The Corth ships regrouped, their weapons trained on the human fleet. The battle raged on, the void of space illuminated by explosions and energy beams crisscrossing between the two sides. Despite losses on both sides, the humans' superior tactics and technology began to turn the tide. Captain Blake gritted his teeth as his ship shuddered under a barrage of Corth fire. "Shields at 60%, Lieutenant Chun reported, her voice tight with tension. "Reroute power from non-essential systems," Blake commanded, leaning forward in his chair. "Get me a targeting solution on that Corth battleship." Chun nodded, her fingers swiftly navigating her console. "Aye, sir. Targeting solution acquired." Blake's eyes locked on the enemy ship as a beam of searing energy lanced out from the human vessel, piercing the Corth battleship's shields and slicing through its hull. The battleship listed to one side, its engines flickering and dying as more Corth ships fell to the relentless assault. Opening a channel to the Nexus, Blake addressed Captain Diaz. "This is Captain Blake of the Earth Defense Force. We've got the Corth on the ropes, but we can't do this alone. I propose a temporary alliance to drive these invaders away from Zylo Prime and secure the planet's safety. What do you say?" Diaz hesitated, studying Blake's face on the view screen. He had never encountered humans before, and their sudden appearance and advanced technology made him wary. But as he watched the human fleet engage the Corth with grace and precision, he realized they might hold the key to saving not only Zylo Prime but the entire Galactic Federation. "Captain Blake," Diaz said, his voice steady. "The Galactic Federation accepts your proposal. Let us work together to defeat the Corth and secure a future for all our people." Blake nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Glad to hear it, Captain Diaz. Let's show these Corth what happens when you mess with the wrong planets." As the human and Galactic Federation fleets joined forces, the tide of the battle turned in earnest. The Corth, faced with the combined might of two determined foes, began to falter and retreat. On the bridge of the Nexus, Captain Diaz allowed himself a small smile of hope. Perhaps with the help of these mysterious humans, the end was not so near. As the combined might of the human and Galactic Federation fleets bore down on the Corth invasion force, every ship focused their fire on the enemy, bombarding them with missiles and energy beams. The Corth ships buckled and broke under the onslaught, their hulls shearing apart in bursts of flame. One by one, the invading vessels winked out, leaving only debris behind. On the bridge of the Nexus, Diaz let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "They're retreating," he said, hardly daring to believe it. "We've done it." The view screen flickered, and Captain Blake's face appeared, his expression one of grim satisfaction. "Captain Diaz, the Corth are in full retreat. Zylo Prime is safe for now. My crew and I will be landing to assess the damage and provide whatever assistance we can to the zones." Diaz nodded. "Understood, Captain Blake. And thank you. We would not have survived this without your help." Blake gave a curt nod. "We'll speak more on the surface." Blake out. The human ships descended through Zylo Prime's atmosphere, landing on the scorched earth near the ruins of the capital city. Blake and his crew disembarked, their boots crunching on the ash-covered ground. Diaz and Counselor Arya, the leader of the zones, approached the humans. Arya's eyes were filled with tears as she took in the destruction around them. The once proud spires of the city were now little more than rubble, and the air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke. "Captain Blake," Arya said, her voice trembling, "words cannot express our gratitude for your timely intervention. You have saved countless lives today." Blake removed his helmet, revealing a face lined with the weight of many battles. "We're glad we could help, Counselor Arya, but I fear this is only the beginning." Diaz frowned. "For what do you mean?" Blake gestured to the ruins around them. "The Corth are not known for giving up easily. They will return with even greater force. And they are not the only threat out there." Arya's eyes widened. "There are others like the Corth?" Blake nodded grimly. "Earth has been monitoring the galactic situation for some time now. We've seen the Cath's conquest, and we knew it was only a matter of time before they set their sights on the Galactic Federation. That's why we've been developing advanced technologies to counter the threat." Diaz leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What kind of technologies?" Blake hesitated, glancing at his crew. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the specifics, but suffice it to say that we have made significant advancements in weapons, shielding, and propulsion systems. We're prepared to share this technology with the Galactic Federation to assist you in better defending yourselves against the Corth and any other threats that may arise," Blake offered. Arya and Diaz exchanged a guarded glance. "That is a generous offer, Captain Blake," Arya said carefully. "But I'm sure you can understand our hesitation. We know nothing about your people or your intentions. How can we be sure that you won't use this technology against us?" Blake opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, a deafening explosion rocked the ground beneath their feet. Diaz was thrown to the ground, his ears ringing. He looked up, his vision blurred, and saw Arya lying motionless on the ground, her body twisted at an unnatural angle. "Counselor!" he cried, scrambling to her side, but it was too late. Arya's eyes stared unseeing at the smoke-filled sky, her life snuffed out in an instant. Blake, his face bloodied and his uniform torn, stumbled to his feet. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. A human medic rushed to his side, scanner in hand. "Captain, you're injured. We need to get you back to the ship." Blake waved him off, his eyes darting around the scene. "I'm fine. We need to find out what happened." Diaz, his heart heavy with grief and shock, spotted a figure moving through the smoke. It was a Zyian, but there was something off about the way he moved. Realization dawned on Diaz, and he grabbed Blake's arm. "Captain, that's a Cath infiltrator," he shouted. Blake's eyes narrowed, and he reached for his sidearm, but the infiltrator was faster. He raised a weapon and fired a bolt of energy, searing through the air towards the human. Captain Blake swiftly dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the bolt that whizzed past him by inches. Rolling to his feet, he returned fire, his shots finding their mark. The infiltrator fell, his weapon clattering to the ground. Diaz stood nearby, his mind reeling. "They were here all along," he said, his voice hollow. "The Corth had spies within our own council." Blake, his face grim, turned to Diaz. "This changes everything. We need to." Before he could finish, a chorus of shouts erupted from the gathered zones. "This is your fault," one of them cried, pointing an accusing finger at the humans. "You brought this upon us. They staged this attack to gain our trust," another shouted. "They want to control us, just like the Corth." Diaz looked around at his people, seeing the fear and mistrust in their eyes. He realized that the fragile alliance they had forged with the humans was already crumbling, even as the embers of the explosion still smoldered around them. Blake, his expression unreadable, met Diaz's gaze. "We need to talk, Captain. Somewhere private." Diaz hesitated, the accusations of his people still ringing in his ears. But he knew they couldn't afford to let this newfound alliance fall apart, not with the Corth still out there, waiting for their chance to strike again. "Follow me," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "We have much to discuss." As they walked away from the chaos of the explosion site, Diaz couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger, something that would change the course of the galaxy forever. And at the center of it all were the humans, the mysterious newcomers who had saved them from destruction but who might also hold the key to their ultimate fate. Meanwhile, Captain James Blake lay in the infirmary of the Earth Defense Force flagship, the Prometheus, his body battered and bruised from the Corth infiltrator attack on Zylo Prime. The ship's medics worked tirelessly to treat his wounds, their advanced medical technology knitting together the damaged tissue and easing his pain. As he drifted in and out of consciousness, Blake's mind raced with the implications of the attack. The Corth had been one step ahead of them, planting a spy within the Zyian Council to sow discord and undermine the fragile alliance between humanity and the Galactic Federation. On the Nexus, Captain Diaz pored over security footage and intelligence reports, searching for any clue that might lead him to the truth behind the attack. He knew that time was running out. The longer the humans and the Galactic Federation remained divided, the stronger the Corth would become. Diaz slammed his fist on the console in frustration. "There must be something we're missing," he muttered to himself. "Some piece of the puzzle that will make this all make sense." His communication officer, Tarun, appeared at his side, her face grave. "Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the human colony on Arcadia Prime. They're under attack." Diaz's eyes widened. "The Corth?" Tarun nodded. "It appears so, sir. The colony's defenses are failing, and they're requesting immediate assistance." Diaz's mind raced. Arcadia Prime was a small, remote colony far from the front lines of the conflict. Why would the Corth strike there unless they're testing us? Realization dawned on him. They want to see how we'll react, how far we'll go to defend our allies. He turned to Tarun. "Send a message to Captain Blake. Tell him we need to talk urgently." On the Prometheus, Blake sat up in his bed, wincing as the movement pulled at his still healing wounds. He read Diaz's message, his brow furrowing. "Arcadia Prime," he said softly. "Damn it." Pushing himself to his feet, he ignored the protests of the medics. "I need to get to the bridge," he said, his voice firm. "We have work to do." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Blake and Diaz conferred via secure video link, their faces grim. "The Corth are using our own technology against us," Blake said, his voice tight with anger. "They must have reverse-engineered the weapons they captured on Zylo Prime." Diaz nodded. "And now they're using them to attack your colonies, to sow fear and doubt among your people." Blake jaw clenched. "We can't let them get away with this. We have to strike back hard and fast." Diaz hesitated. "Captain, I understand your desire for vengeance, but we must be cautious. The Cath are a powerful enemy, and we cannot afford to underestimate them. Blake leaned forward, his eyes blazing. I have a plan, Captain Diaz. A way to cripple the Cath war machine and end this conflict once and for all. But I need your help and the help of the Galactic Federation to make it happen. Diaz's eyes narrowed. What do you propose? Blake took a deep breath. We know the location of the Cath's main shipyard and weapons production facility. It's heavily guarded, but with the combined might of our fleets, we can punch through their defenses and destroy it. Without their ability to produce new ships and weapons, the Corth will be crippled, unable to continue their conquest. As Diaz sat back in his chair, his mind raced. The plan was audacious, risky, but it might just work. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Blake wasn't telling him. Some piece of the puzzle that was still missing. I need time to consider this, Captain Blake, he said carefully. The Galactic Federation Council will need to be consulted, and there are risks to be weighed. Blake's face hardened. We don't have time for deliberation, Captain. Every moment we waste, the Corth grows stronger. We have to act now while we still have the element of surprise. Diaz sighed, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. He thought of Arya, of the countless lives lost to the Cath's relentless conquest, and he thought of the humans, the mysterious newcomers who had saved them from destruction, but whose true intentions remained unknown. In the end, he knew there was only one choice he could make. Very well, Captain Blake, he said, his voice steady. The Galactic Federation will support your plan, but I have one condition. Blake raised an eyebrow. And what is that? Diaz leaned forward, his gaze intense. I will accompany you on this mission. I need to see for myself what we're up against and ensure that the humans are truly committed to this alliance. Blake hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. We'll make the necessary preparations and depart as soon as possible. As the video link terminated, Diaz sat back in his chair, his mind racing. He knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But he also knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and with the humans by their side, perhaps they stood a chance of emerging victorious and ushering in a new era of peace and cooperation. But even as he clung to that hope, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else at play, some hidden truth that would change everything. And as he prepared for the mission that would decide the fate of the Galactic Federation, he knew that he would stop at nothing to uncover it, no matter the cost. The bridge of the Prometheus was a hive of activity as Captain Blake and his crew prepared for the most important mission of their lives. Technicians and officers hurried from station to station, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and anxiety. Blake himself stood at the center of the chaos, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that hovered before him. It showed the combined fleet of human and Galactic Federation ships, a formidable force that had been assembled for one purpose: to strike at the heart of the Corth Empire and end their reign of terror once and for all. Beside him, Captain Diaz of the Galactic Federation ship Nexus studied the display with equal intensity. The two had spent long hours in discussion, weighing the risks and rewards of the mission, debating strategy and tactics. In the end, Diaz had agreed to support Blake's plan, though not without reservations. I hope you know what you're doing, Captain, Diaz said, his voice low. We're venturing into uncharted space, facing an enemy that has proven time and again to be both cunning and ruthless. If this goes wrong, Blake shook his head. It won't go wrong. Can't. Too much depends on our success. He turned to face Diaz, his eyes blazing with fierce determination. We've come too far to turn back now. The Corth have inflicted untold suffering on the galaxy, and it's up to us to stop them, whatever the cost. Diaz nodded, though his expression remained troubled. I just pray that cost isn't too high. As the fleet set out into the void, the challenges began almost immediately. The uncharted regions of space through which they traveled were treacherous, filled with gravitational anomalies, asteroid fields, and strange energy storms that played havoc with their sensors and communication systems. And then there were the Corth. The enemy seemed to be everywhere, launching ambushes from hidden bases, sending saboteurs to infiltrate the fleet, and sowing chaos from within. The Alliance fought back with all the skill and courage at their command, but the toll was heavy. In the corridors of the Prometheus, tensions ran high as the casualties mounted. Crew members who had once worked side by side now eyed each other with suspicion, wondering if the next betrayal might come from their own ranks. Through it all, Blake and Diaz worked tirelessly to maintain order and unity, leading by example and inspiring their crews with their unwavering resolve. They knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance and that any weakness or division could spell disaster. As they closed in on Corth Prime, the fleet stood as a battered yet unbroken force, forged in the crucible of battle and poised for the final showdown. But then came the shocking revelation that altered everything. An intelligence report, intercepted by a human spy deeply embedded within the Corth ranks, unveiled the existence of a doomsday weapon. This device wielded such terrifying destructive potential that it could obliterate entire star systems with a single devastating blast. Though the report was fragmented and the details frustratingly obscure, one fact was unmistakable. If the Corth completed and unleashed this weapon upon the galaxy, the repercussions would surpass imagination. Blake and Diaz realized they had no alternative. The assault on Corth Prime would need to be hastened. The stakes soared, and the room for error expanded exponentially. They would have to strike swiftly and forcefully, employing every ship and weapon in their arsenal, while clinging to hope that it would suffice. As the fleet orbited the Corth's home world, Blake stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, his countenance grim and his eyes steely. Beside him, Diaz remained a silent presence, his thoughts his own. On the view screen, Corth Prime loomed, its rugged mountains and turbulent clouds masking the ominous presence of weapon emplacements and fortified defenses. Somewhere below lay the doomsday weapon, its malevolent power poised to wreak havoc upon an unsuspecting galaxy. Turning to his crew, Blake's voice rang out, steady and resolute. "This is it," he declared, the culmination of all their efforts. The Corth believe themselves invincible, that their cruelty and technology will grant them mastery over the galaxy. But they are mistaken. They have never faced the unified strength of humanity and the Galactic Federation. They have never confronted the courage and determination of those who refuse to yield to tyranny and oppression. He paused, his gaze sweeping the bridge, acknowledging the men and women who had fought, bled, and sacrificed to bring them to this pivotal moment. "We're going to show them what we're made of," he declared. "We're going to fight until our last breath, until the Corth are nothing but a bad memory, and we're going to win." Beside him, Diaz nodded, his own resolve crystallizing into unwavering certainty. "For the Galactic Federation," he affirmed, his voice resounding with fierce pride. "For all the worlds that have suffered under the Corth's cruelty. For the future." Blake grinned, a predatory flash of teeth. "For Earth," he proclaimed, "and for every human who refuses to submit to tyranny. Let's do this." With those words, the final assault on Corth Prime commenced, an all-or-nothing battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy for generations to come. The outcome remained uncertain, but one thing was undeniable. The alliance between humanity and the Galactic Federation would persevere to the bitter end. United in their determination to eradicate the Corth menace once and for all, they would spare no effort or sacrifice, regardless of the cost.